What is your best "I definitely did not deserve that grade" story from school? Sophomore year of college, I was taking a class that about 2/3 of the way through the year I totally checked out of. Rarely went to class, hardly ever paid attention when I did, and just stopped caring. Leading up to the final, I, of course, realized I knew none of the material. The final wasn't cumulative. I did the math and realized I needed 50% to pass the class with a C-. I show up on the day of the exam and realize I got the day wrong. My exam was the previous day. I email my professor in a panic and begged her for a chance to retake it or do some kind of extra credit, anything to get me a passing grade. No response. I go home for winter break assuming I'm going to have to retake this class. Haven't told my parents about the shame. Then 2 weeks later, my teacher finally replied. Her email went something like this: "I'm so incredibly sorry. I left for vacation immediately after the exam and just now got back. It's obviously way too late for you to take the exam or do any kind of extra credit. The best I can do is to take your current class average, an 89, and put that in for your exam grade. Would that be okay? So I get a B+ instead of the C- I was hoping for?" Yes, that would be just fine. I had a college professor whom I just didn't turn in my final, and he gave me an A for the class anyways. Not sure why. I gave him some duck jerky earlier in the year, so maybe he really liked it. Turned in the same essay twice. Got 2 different grades. Did the same with a sculpture. He went on and on about the clear improvements in craftsmanship since last week. Smile and nod. Had an essay that was explicitly due Tuesday in 6th grade. I have no clue why it didn't click that it was due, not due, and only realized when my friend asked me about the essay on the bus. I told my teacher that I'd forgotten to print it out, ran home after the bus, typed it out in 15 to 30 minutes, and got a 97. This started my habit of intense procrastination. In 5th grade, I was really excited to be assigned our first report for homework. Something about having to do research and write up a few pages on a topic made me feel like I was finally entering a big kid's school. Anyways, we had the weekend to do it and my topic was tornadoes. They were randomly assigned, but I was pretty stoked to get a cool one. I spent all weekend doing research and writing up this 4 to 5 page paper on tornadoes with a picture or two thrown in. But I was really proud of it. I got a D because my teacher assumed my parents had done it for me and wouldn't discuss the matter. It was not up for debate in any way, and I've never been so crushed. Really killed whatever love I had to learn that year. I still did well in school, but my enthusiasm for learning and doing research on my own never was the same after that. In Year 9, US Grade 8, History, we were given a small assignment as homework over the weekend. I can't remember what the assignment was on, but it had to be around 500 words and summarize what we'd been doing for the past few weeks. Nothing too hard. I completed the homework to what I considered a reasonable standard and handed it in. However, when I received the grade, I was awarded a D, with the teacher's primary criticism being that I hadn't written enough. I was confused by this since I had written around 500 words, as he asked. He told me to go away and redo it better. After getting home, I had some time to compare my work with my friends. I'd written the essay in size 11 font Times New Roman, and had neglected to include any images. This is pretty standard for higher grade academic work, but most of my peers had used size 14. Some even used Comic Sans. So what did I do? I scaled up the text, increased the spacing, and slapped a couple of generic pictures of Henry VIII's face on there and handed it in the next morning. Lo and behold, after he graded it, I got an A, and a special mention for my hard work. I have never been so thrilled with myself and so disappointed in a teacher in my life. It just goes to show how another person's laziness can screw you over. I had a geometry teacher that everyone hated. Despite the book telling you a way to work out a problem, she'd tell you, but many times it was a different way. If you did it the way that the book says, it'd be marked wrong, no partial credit. If you did it her way and got it wrong, it was wrong, no partial credit. When the entire class misses a question and asks her to go over it, she adds some extra steps that weren't shown, and she couldn't explain when asked about it. Luckily, she didn't check the papers thoroughly, and I've always been a bit messy with my math. I understand the flow and can point it out whenever asked, so I do the work her way while doing it the right way on a paper that she'd never got to see, and just write down the correct answer if her way gave a different one. Of course, this made assignments take nearly twice as long, but don't worry. You know how some teachers will see a lesson with 120 problems and only assign half or so? She didn't do this. Every damn question had to be done, so it usually took around 3 hours a night for this one class. I swear when I passed and moved on to Algebra 2, I didn't know what to do when I finished homework assignments so fast. In high school, we were asked to write a proposal for a new drinking age in the United States. I wrote about how it should be lowered to 12, but people who are past 12 now should have to wait until their next birthday to avoid millions of teenagers suddenly becoming the legal age to drink at once. I cited other countries with lower drinking ages and fewer drinking-related issues, discussed how it currently has a strong forbidden fruit appeal to high school kids, and that wouldn't be as big of a deal. Also, kids could get introduced to alcohol and learn their limits while still being somewhat supervised by their parents. She gave me a 0 and claimed I was making fun of the assignment. Apparently, everyone else only lowered it to 18, citing that if you can go to war, you can drink a drink, or they raised it. I actually really enjoyed the assignment and thought I was being practical. Sounds like a good argument to me. My grandmother is from Belgium, where the drinking age is very young. She always tells stories about how she would drink with her family when she was barely a teenager. She has very good drinking habits because of it. For example, she has never drunk or drove, ever. I'm talking, I needed her to pick me up, and when I called, she told me she was halfway through a drink, and I had to call someone else. Took biology and economics during my freshman year of college, and made the mistake of doing both classes in the morning. I worked the swing/graveyard shift. The biology class was graded solely on 3 exams. The dates for them were in the syllabus, along with a summary of the chapters covered in each. I only showed up on the first day and 3 exam days, crammed the night before each time, and really did well on the tests and got an A. Economics was harder. Participation and attendance counted towards the grade, and a test date was moved, so I missed taking it. Fortunately, I had a buddy in the class who signed my name on the attendance sheet that day and was therefore able to convince my professor that he must have lost my exam. He let me retake it and I eked out a B. Left one high school shortly after the semester break, and all teachers gave me an A because they didn't have anything to go on. Went to another state, and they were so far into the semester all teachers decided they could hold me responsible for what they already taught, so they all gave me whatever grade I came in with. The only time in my life I got all A's. I had a bit of a weird teacher in geography way back when I was in the 9th grade. He was always correcting our assignments way too long after we handed them in. One time we had 2 assignments that should be handed in over the course of 2 weeks. I only did one of them as I didn't really feel like doing the other one for some reason. When we got back the assignments back like a month later or something, he didn't actually give back the assignments. He just told us our grades from a piece of paper that he was reading from. When he got to my desk, he gave me a B for the first one and an A for the one I didn't hand in. I don't think I deserved that. I got the same grade as everyone else on a group project that crashed and burned spectacularly. I was the only person who did any work while the other 8 members of the group messed around. The group agreed with me and signed a letter saying I deserved an A for the work I put in and that they had done nothing. The teacher agreed and gave me a better grade. This is from college, and it happened very recently. I took programming classes, and our mid-exam was to complete pre-written codes. The purpose of the code was to assign characteristics to a rocket. When the required characteristics are filled, the rocket will launch, and the completion status must be 100% for this to happen. If the completion status goes below 90%, the rocket won't launch. You get the idea. I was never good at programming. I understood the logic, but writing the codes down is like writing in an alien language. The exam was 2 hours, and in the span of 2 hours, my completion status was a mere 20%. My friends got 65, 80%, even one was smart enough to change the pre-written codes and got 100%. I accepted the fact that I might fail this class and submitted my exam. I don't exactly know how the gods work up there, but I got a 95 on my mid-exam. Yes, 95. What the hell? I emailed the lecturer asking about how I got such a score, and he said though I didn't get 100%, I implemented polymorphism into the codes, and he thought it was impressive. To this day, I still don't know what the hell polymorphism is, and how in the world I could have implemented that crap on my program. In my first year of university, I wrote a paper in sociology class where I mixed up the word mores, a type of social norm, and moray, a type of eel, and as such wrote about the impact of eels on the law. For some reason, the TA thought my eel law paper wasn't too horrible and gave me a B. She told the entire class that someone had written about social eels and that we needed to be more careful with our spelling. This was 10 years ago in the Midwestern US. I took biology as a freshman in high school. There was this big bug collecting project that counted for like 40% of our first semester grade. Basically, we had to catch a bunch of bugs, kill them, pin them, and correctly label them with their scientific name. To get full credit, you had to catch a minimum of 30 unique bug species. The one thing I learned from that project that I still remember, I am terrible at catching bugs. If you count the cricket I bought at a pet store, I managed 18 and received a D+ on the project. So despite earning A's on all the tests and homework that semester, I earned a B in the class. Did not happen to me, but to my grammatically challenged roommate at the time. We were instructed to write a how-to paper for sophomore English class. We had to pick our topics during class and tell the teacher. Someone sitting close to us came up with the topic of how to write a paper, so naturally my friend goes with how to write an F paper. His intentions were to write it as best as he could and receive an A. He wrote it so poorly and with multiple spelling and grammatical errors that the teacher loved the satirical vibe. He demonstrated in his paper and promptly gave him an A. Picked a choice book, had to do a project on it for honors English class. Didn't read it. Mildly researched the book, shot out a pretty looking PowerPoint. Presented fancy bullcrap book report in front of the class and teacher. Got an A-. English 101. I forgot that an essay was due that following afternoon but had to work and study for a more important chemistry course. Downloaded the smallest JPEG file I could find, converted it into a PDF and submitted the essay in hopes the professor would ask to send it again and it would give me a buffer time of 24 to 48 hours. Checked the grading module and got full points. No questions asked. Man, I used to do that rename a JPEG to a doc thing to buy time, but it never occurred to me to pick small images. I wonder if my professors ever noticed I was handing in 500 kilobyte Word documents that were supposed to be 3,000 word essays. Geez, I didn't even think about file sizes. I would just open a different doc essay with Notepad, deleted a line, then saved it as a .doc. Then when you opened it again, it'll be corrupted or a jumble of nonsense. I did my senior project on building a computer, like putting together a gaming rig from parts you'd buy on Newegg or Amazon. Since people think that's an impressive thing, I was able to get by with it no problem. Best part is that I had already built it. I just disassembled it, took pictures of myself putting it back together, and talked about how to decide on what parts to get, the core components you need, etc., etc. I once spent a full 2-hour period of a 9th grade class copying the questions slowly onto another sheet of paper. It was a reading retention quiz or something. I guess she was only looking to see if you'd written anything because I got full marks. The moral is, teachers are overworked and underpaid, and children's educations pay the price. Inverse, teacher had this messed up notion of, I think an A- is really good. I got an A-, asked her what I could do to improve it, and what would take it beyond the standard expectation. Nothing. There's nothing else that would make this better. Then where the hell is my 100? In my college dynamics course, we had a group project that we assigned different sections to do within our group. It was an incredibly difficult project, so we couldn't just completely split off and do it on our own. But there were easier sections that could be done by one person. Anyways, in a group of 3, one of our guys just never showed up to any of our meetings. We're not peens and we get that we're busy and all that, so we just give him the easier stuff to do when he can get around to it. So my friend and I pulled all-nighters until we finally completed it a few days before it was due. We send what we have to the third guy and he assures us that he'll get the rest done. We check up on him the day before asking if he wants help, and he says that he's got it and he'll bring the completed project into class. Of course, he walks in and says, "Sorry guys, I never got around to it." We were basically missing the easiest third of our project because he couldn't tell us if he needed help. I explained the situation to the teacher, but he had no sympathy. He said, "In the real world, you live and die with the people by your side," and graded us for what we completed, so surprise, we failed. I didn't talk to that kid for the rest of the semester even though he sat right next to me. University had an 8 a.m. class. I would probably skip 1/3 of the time. Missed the day the midterm was given back. So I asked the professor to bring it to the next class. He starts to give me a hard time before looking at the exam and seeing 100% written at the top and saying good job. I go sit down feeling pretty smart and go to glance through it before the class begins. For the main question, I saw a couple of check marks, then question mark and nothing else for a page and a half before the answer was circled with a check mark. Turns out I had done the problem the wrong way, confused the TA marking the test, and then somehow came to the correct answer at the end, so he just marked it completely correct. In a math test in college, a friend made all the processes wrong. really wrong. It didn't even make sense. He somehow got the right answer. We don't know how it happened. It wasn't a simple answer either, like 8 or something. It was a semi-complex answer. He didn't get the points, but I remember he went to the teacher to complain, and it was hilarious. I was in an upper-level political science class that had essay tests. The professor asked us questions and wanted us to explain the answers, which was not bad. I filled 5 out of 8 pages in a blue book and turned in my exam. Positive I had aced it. I received a 63%, and when I asked the professor why, he said that although all my answers were correct, other people had filled 8 out of 8 pages, and he had to grade all the tests relative to each other. For my creative writing major piece in high school, I got an A+. I got the highest grade in the whole class and in every creative writing class. I was given awards, I won a prize, and I was praised by every English teacher in the school. I plagiarized it. Every single word. Not a single word was my own doing. I was incredibly depressed at the time and just wanted to get it over with. So I went to a short story website, picked the first one that looked like it was decent, and copied it into a Word document. I know it sounds like I'm making up excuses, but genuinely all I wanted to do was pass the class. I never thought for a frickin' second that I would get awards and prizes for it. I and another guy I didn't know too well got assigned a joint presentation on a topic I can't quite remember. I think it has something to do with tourism in the outdoor industry. We did very little prep work after being assigned the task. Probably 80% of the PowerPoint was made in the hour right before the seminar. We rushed together about 10 slides with info copied from Wikipedia, decided which slides we would each talk through, and left it at that. The presentation went pretty much flawlessly. We somehow managed to confidently blag our way through each slide as if we knew the topic by heart. When one of us would falter, the other would jump in with some more bullcrap to cover. Come to the Q&A at the end, we totally pulled it out of our arse, to the point where the lecturer praised us for being so well prepared. I guess confidence is key. In the end, we got the equivalent of a B+. Definitely did not deserve that grade. When I was in high school, I loved languages but was gripped with such crippling shyness I was unable to speak a foreign language at all. This meant I couldn't do any of the verbal tests because I would put on the headphones and immediately cry. So they wouldn't let me do the French exam course and put me in a lower bracket. A few weeks before exams, the exam board changed the fail criteria to be less stringent. I'd gained some confidence and my teacher said that if I wanted, I could go for it. I took a long time to prepare my verbal presentation and had some help with preparing and practicing it, due to the tight time scale. I still wasn't confident, but the teacher was really supportive. By absolute chance, when I went into the written exam, the essay question was on the exact same topic for which I had prepared my verbal presentation. I literally sat there and wrote it out all as an essay. You guys, I got an A. Nobody expected it, it was fantastic. In my senior year of high school, I was taking Spanish 12, or the senior level course. I had been taking yearly Spanish courses since 7th grade at this point, so you would think I would be bueno by now. But no, I was not bueno. For our final presentation, we had to discuss any topic we wanted for a full 15 minutes, obviously in Spanish. I knew I would struggle, but I tried all year to actually improve. I did not. Anyway, I did my presentation on the Oregon Trail computer game. Remember that crap? It was awesome. I played through and grabbed screenshots of different stages. I named my players after my friends in the class. I went the full nueve, you could say. One flaw. I didn't have the vocabulary for a 15-minute speech on my game. So I tried to cheat. Each slide was well done, but what I said was the exact same with small changes. Mi familia es, then a verb. I even wrote note cards and hid them in my crotch while I sat and pretended they were hidden. I'd read them off them because remembering like 8 verbs was beyond me. Mucho trabajo. I ended up with a grade that would allow me to pass and leave language courses for the rest of the year. My teacher knew I was an idiot and gave me a slide. I'm convinced. So I thought I could do the same next semester and I signed up for Spanish 13. Easy college credit, I thought. I walked in, the same teacher. She took one look at me and wrote me a pass to my counselor. You aren't taking this. Go find a business course or something. So I did. Now I have a marketing degree I don't use. Life is crazy, man. During my film class, I had to make a documentary about whatever I wanted. My grandpa had gotten dementia, and I wanted to talk about his life and stuff so I could have something after he was gone. He was a quiet man, so I didn't really know much about him. He died while in production, and the final product literally made my mom cry when I showed it to the class, and a lot of people teared up too. What do I get? An 83. A person literally died during the making of my documentary, and I get a B-. The qualifications to access university in Scotland are what are known as Highers. I took Higher English, but I'm kinda crap at English, but good enough to pass the exam. When our prelim, a sort of test exam, rolled around in February, I failed it by like 2%, and the teacher decided that I wasn't good enough to sit in the higher exam. She'd keep me in the class, but when the exams rolled around, I'd sit in the lower tier Intermediate 2 exam, which would give me a lower tier qualification, which is useless for just about anything. I sat this exam and ended up getting an A. A useless freaking A would be no help in getting me into university, effectively wasting my whole year in that class. This was 13 years ago now, and I'm still annoyed. I got a B on a paper I previously got a D on because my teacher didn't write the grade in her grade book, asked me what I got, and believed me. She handed back the papers, and I typically got good grades and didn't have the paper on me, so she just took my word for it. Took an ethnic studies class in college. I scored an 88, 50, and 30 on 3 tests. I did like 70% of my homework, but got an A on the final project. The final project was that we had to write about a group in America that has been discriminated against and how. The length didn't matter, so I wrote a 2-page paper on slavery. Got an A for the final class. I was in a statistics course my senior year of high school that I took as a blow-off so I wouldn't have to take calc. The middle-aged female professor was obsessed with my friend and I and would let us get away with almost anything. We always joked that she wanted to do the nasty with us, but I genuinely think she might have if we had propositioned her. Anyway, in the 3rd trimester of the year, I blew off almost every assignment. I barely did anything. I just messed around in her class and just wrote notes on my calculator back and forth with the cute girl who sat in front of me. A couple of times, the professor let me teach the class. It was a huge joke. I never actually checked, but I was almost certainly failing the course. Her class was the last period of the day, so I always hung around and chatted with her after school before tennis practice, totally and intentionally just endearing myself to her as much as possible. Toward the end of the year, during one of these chats, she straight up asked me what kind of grade I would be happy with in the class. I wasn't a greedy guy, and I figured I was probably actually sitting around 35 to 40% in the class solely from doing well on the tests, so I said I would probably be cool with a C+ or something. Trimester final grades came out, and god damn it, I had a 76% in statistics, which in our system was the exact cutoff for a C+. For my senior year of college, I took an intro psych class just to offset the upper-level courses I was in. I was the only senior in a room of freshmen. I thought it was going to suck, but it was one of my best courses. The guy teaching was hilarious, attractive, and had an interesting lesson plan. Plus, he was a pretty chill guy. He told us at the beginning of the semester that if his test schedule didn't work for us for whatever reason, he would let us come take our test in his office at a better time. Of course, it was my senior year, so I didn't want to miss out on any parties, at least not to study for an intro psych class. He let me reschedule 2 tests, keeping an A for the class. I was completely honest with him, and he gave 0 craps, and even told me I better not miss anything fun to study for his class. I mean, I would have gone out the night before the tests anyway. It's not like I was going to fail the class, but I did not deserve that A. Hands down the best teacher I've ever had. I had to write an essay about civil disobedience. I got an A for turning in a paper saying no. I did not study for my microeconomics final one bit, as I needed a perfect score to get an A, and I could get a 0 and maintain a B. My professor did the final on the computers in class, and the whole class got 2 tries. Upon completion of my first try, all the answers were displayed. I used my notebook to write down all the answers, and guess who pulled off an A in microeconomics? The whole class somehow managed to have a 95% average on the final, a school record. I was a junior in college, and I had to take a class outside my major, so I chose a freshman anthropology class. It was the worst. The freshmen trying on their pseudo-intellectual hats, the overly self-righteous comments during discussions made me attend probably less than half the classes. I turned in half-assed assignments and barely read the textbook. At the end of the course, I sent my professor an email apologizing and telling him I would retake the class next term for a better grade, assuming I would get a D or lower. He never answered, but I got a C+, which meant I didn't need to retake it. I got an A in an introductory Russian class and completely failed to learn Russian. I learned how to read and write the letters, I memorized most of the conjugation and declension charts, and I got an A on every written test by extrapolating from the vocabulary and grammar in the test questions and examples, but I never actually learned how to read Russian fluently. I have to sound words out like a preschooler. I only retained about 80% of the Cyrillic letters, and I don't remember Cyrillic alphabetical order, so it's hard to look things up. And I can't produce a single sentence verbally or in writing unless I have grammar and vocabulary in front of me to extrapolate from. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a story to share, please do so in the comments below. Then be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when our next video is available. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again and see you next time!